Hello, everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by the wonderful Brooke Destra. We are live at Rivers Casino in Philadelphia. Brooke, September is just about here, which means Flyers training camp is not far off in the distance. So before you know it, the guys are going to be on the ice, and the season is going to be getting closer and closer. So we thought, let's look at 3 Flyers that have the most to prove this season. And then on another edition of Flyers Talk, we'll go with 3 Flyers with the most to lose potentially this season. So a little predictions here, and we're going to go from 3 to 1. So, Brooke, let's start with you. Your third Flyer with the most to prove this season.
So as you know, Jordan Hall, do I ever really number these? No, I do not. I think there's a clear number 1, so I'll save him for last. Okay. But, 3 and 2, I feel like you can kind of toss them up. I feel like everybody in some way, not to have that cliche, does have something to prove in one way or another.
Yeah.
In a rebuild, everybody has to prove why they need to stay on this team. It's plain and simple. So, number 3, I'm going with Morgan Frost.
Okay.
Because I want this kid to, I say that as if he's not just 2 years young.
I was going to say, you were also a kid. No, okay.
No. I want him to come out of the gate just exactly where he left off last season. The turn of the calendar year, he had most points on the roster. And it kind of made you wonder going into this offseason, okay, is this him stepping up to the plate? Is this finding his groove? Is this him, is it a little fluky? You don't really know what's going on. And I just want him to come out of the gates being like, this is who I am. This is the kind of player you should expect from me. Lock me down as number 2 center. I want that for him so badly. And I want that for the team. Because I really just want so many fun moments throughout the season. And you've seen the kind of flashiness that he can possess in his game that can make somebody, turn their head with a replay and go, oh, you know what? This kid's he's good.
Yeah.
I want that throughout the entire season. So I'm going to go with Morgan Frost. Not that he really has something to prove. I feel like he proved it toward the second half of last season. I just want a continuation of that and more progress. Morgan Frost.
No, that's a good one. Probably a guy that is going to continue to think he always has to prove things. I think the Flyers still want to see more from him, even though on that Prove It deal last year, he proved a lot. I mean, one of the best players from January 1st on. And I think he at least gave the Flyers a strong indication that he can be a part of this moving forward. But I still think John Tortorella wants to see more. I think the new front office wants to see more. And he still needs a contract, Brooke. I mean, that tells you a lot that they're probably negotiating and trying to figure out what's the best for Morgan Frost and for the team. And to see, can he still prove more before they commit to him long term? I think that's probably a debate right now between Morgan Frost's party and the Flyers. So a very good candidate there. Brooke, No, go ahead.
I think he's just going to have a great season.
Yeah.
So putting it out in the universe, prove it to everybody else, Morgan.
Yeah.
Frost. Prove what? I don't know. Just go for it.
Yeah, I think now it's time to see what he can do next. What's the next gear for Morgan Frost? And how can he further prove that he can be a part of this rebuild?
Yeah.
Brooke, I'm going with a player much older than Morgan Frost. At number 3, I'm going Cam Atkinson.
Oh, you stole my second
Yes, there we go. I figured Cam
Atkinson
Atkinson might have been a pick for both of us. I have him at number 3 for obviously some clear reasons. He missed all of last season with a real serious injury to his neck. He's 34 years old. He has 2 more years left on his contract. It's a $5.875 million cap hit. So I think he has a ton to prove in terms of his health. Can he be reliable and consistently healthy? And then what can he do production-wise? Can he still be a guy that's going to score 20 goals? Can he be that consistent, all-out, tinier, but kind of fearless goal scorer that he prides himself on being? And if he proves himself, he could be a guy that the Flyers feel like can kind of steward this rebuild forward, kind of leave an impact on their younger players as this rebuild moves forward. Or I think if he's looking like himself, improving himself, he could be incredibly attractive at the trade deadline. I think contending teams would love a guy like him if he's looking like his old self, if he's proving himself healthy and consistently productive again. I mean, who wouldn't want a guy that scored 40 goals in his career one time? 40 plus, I should say, 41 at one point, 2018-19.
I was gonna say that's still fairly recent. Too,
still fairly recent, not too far off in the past. And he's a great locker room guy. He's established. He's been in the playoffs. I just think he would be great for a contending team if he's showing that he can be like himself again. So Cam Atkinson, for those reasons, I have as the third Flyer with the most approved this year.
Yeah, and it just kind of bounced off that since he was the next guy I was going to talk about.
Yeah, good segue.
I mean, you covered pretty much all of it. But I also think that he wants to prove it to the city and to the fans that I'm here. I want to play. I want to, contribute as much as I can. He is the oldest active player on the roster, too, when you look at it. And that's kind of crazy because it's born in 89. Like, that's not, that's not too long.
Yeah.
But you're going to want him to step up. I caught myself. I was going to have a baseball pun because I'm so
step
locked
up to the plate.
I'm so, yeah. So locked in on Phillies right now, too. That I caught myself. I was like wrong sport, bro. No. I just think that he's aware of the status of the team, obviously, but also where fans are kind of in this weird limbo of, yes, I want to watch. Yes, I want this team to be good. How can I still, connect and be present with this hockey team that's in a rebuild? And I think, he comes out, guns a-blazing, locked in, kind of being that player that you remember from the 18-19 season. If nobody's expecting him to come out after this serious injury with 40 plus goals, like that's, come on, have realistic expectations. But even if he comes and contributes, 20, 25, that's even really great.
Yeah.
So I think he just has a lot to prove as a whole. And again, I'm always rooting for these players. Like, I never am I saying something, I'm like, I want it to crash and I want it to burn.
Yeah.
Never. Like, I want everybody to succeed, and that might just be all sunshine and rainbows and all of that stuff. But you want your team to succeed. You want good players on your team. So I hope that he rises to the occasion. I'm sure that it's going to be a really exciting feeling for him to be able to be back on the ice after all of this time. And he's going to come in with that mentality of, I got to prove myself. Why am I still here? And I want to be here. So
Atkinson probably has a ton to prove to himself, too.
For sure.
He got emotional at the end of the season in April at his exit interview. He fought back tears talking about what he went through with his neck injury last season. You can tell it took a toll on him mentally and physically. And so I think even his inner belief, he wants to prove to himself that he can get back out there, play, be productive, be a part of something. And he's a guy that I think really likes being in Philadelphia and wants to be here. But I think he would also understand if he's producing and he's doing well and the team wants to supplement the rebuild even more at the trade deadline, whenever that gets here. I think he would be open to maybe going to a contending team and getting a shot at maybe winning. I mean, he's 34 years old. I think he understands the stage at which he is in his career, and the chance to win is pretty precious. So I think he would love to prove to himself and maybe other teams too that he could be, helpful to a team that's looking to win eventually.
Yeah, we're rooting for you, Cam.
Yeah, Cam Atkinson, good guy. Just seeing what he went through last year from the human element of it. You hope he's okay, absolutely. And you hope he can play because he's a fun player. He's a good guy to be around, and I think a good guy for some of the younger players on the roster. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone, including a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Brooke Desher, number 2 Flyer with the most approved this season. Who are you going with?
I just did it.
Cam Atkinson. You know, it's so funny.
Hello.
I thought we were talking about mine. I was like, okay, we're talking about Atkinson. I had him at 3.
We merged.
So, Brooke, you already had your number 2.
We are rolling.
You looked
We
at
are
me
rocking.
like my head was on sideways. I was like,
do I need to just pick another player out of thin air because I will?
that is honestly too funny. So, Brooke is going with Cam Atkinson at number 2. I had him at
your number 2, Jordan.
So let's get right into my number 2. Brooke, another guy that's kind of in the same skates as Cam Atkinson, Sean Couturier, an established veteran forward who is also coming off some serious injury problems. I think he has a ton to prove. He even said it at the end of the season. His quote was, going into this offseason motivated and with a lot to prove coming into next year. I think he wants to prove a ton to people in hockey circles, fans, and I think ultimately probably wants to prove to himself that he can still play this game at a high level. So if you don't know about Couturier's story, let's hit it in a nutshell. Had the 2 back surgeries. He hasn't played since December 2021. So come October, come the season opener, he'll have gone almost 22 months since he last played a game.
Which is crazy.
Which is pretty nuts for a guy that's won a Selke trophy, is being paid top dollar.
Top dollar.
So he'll be going Ben Bear.
Our podcast producer
yes,
got a kick out of that.
Little chiming in there. But Couturier is in year 2 of an 8-year, $62 million contract. He's got a no-move clause. He is making elite money. It's a high, profile player type of contract. So he knows he wants to prove what he can do. And I think he wants to prove it to everyone. I can't think of a guy. I have one guy that I think needs to prove more. We'll get into that, but Couturier, I think, has to be up there, Brooke.
Absolutely. And I can't stress this enough. Before Couturier's injury, he was one of the top 2-way offensively defensive-minded forwards in the league.
Yeah.
That's why he won the Selke. Hello. But also, that's why he earned the contract. You can never predict injuries of this magnitude. I don't think, 4 years ago, anybody would have expected that, honestly, that the roster in general would look like it does right now. But Couturier specifically, not having him these past 2 years really was a huge hole in this roster because, you kind of look back and you're like, you had Giroux, you had Couturier, you had Voracek, and everyone's like, yeah, well, they're aging veterans. Who cares? I care. I care because that's what I grew up with. So let me live.
Yes.
But you just want Couturier to come out, and again, kind of how it is with Atkinson, to come out and prove to himself as well that I'm still the athlete that this team, that this city remembers. And I do think it's going to take him a decent amount of time to figure it out again, because that is a very long time to not play at like a professional pace.
Yeah.
Practice is one thing, but really getting your legs under you, whole different ball game. Baseball pun.
There you go. Staying in season.
Phil.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that he's got a lot to prove to himself and again the city, and he's well aware of that. And I think that that's one of my favorite parts about his character, is that he has never been a person to be like, yeah, I'm the top guy, I'm really good, I won the Selke. He's always looking to improve. He's always somebody who praised the players around him for his work ethic and, gets better because of who he plays with. And I think that that is also an element that is really going to benefit these younger guys on the team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Couturier, rooting for you too,
yeah.
my guy.
Yeah, he's an important player, I think, for the Flyers in many ways. His influence on the younger players in the rebuild, and he does have that no-move clause. So he holds the keys. If he wants to be a part of a rebuilding team, he can choose to do that. And I think he wants to be here. I think when he signed his big extension, he talked about being with the Flyers for the rest of his career and for his entire career. And he said that meant something to him. Definitely think that's on his mind a little bit. And I don't think the Flyers are going to be upset if Sean Couturier is healthy and wanting to be a part of this, even if he doesn't exactly fit their timeline. But he is still 30 years old, and that is still the prime age for a lot of players. He, of course, has to prove, though, that he can be healthy again and
lots of steps.
Perhaps maybe look like the player he once was, or at least be somewhat of the player he once was. And even that would be effective for the Flyers. Couturier was pretty good. So if he can be just even a shell of it, I think would still be valuable to the Flyers, and we'll see where it goes. But
I agree.
Brooke, number 1, who are you taking?
Jordan Hall. I want to try something. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. And we're both going to say our number 1 person.
All right, let's do it.
If this is wrong, I'm going to be so embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's going to be 3, 2, 1 player, not 3, 2, 1 go player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
I feel like
do
you
it.
always need to specify.
Yeah.
3,
2, 1. Travis Sanheim.
Oh, thank God.
I was going to say Gritty or something just to throw you off, but I was like, no, let's do it.
I would have been so upset.
Yes.
That is just a testament to show how much Travis Sanheim has to prove this
Indeed.
season. I guess I should talk about
I was going to say, I'll let you go first.
Thank you for listening to the no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I feel like we have talked about Sanheim this offseason at length for a plethora of reasons. I mean, there was times before free agency started where we thought maybe he was even going to be moved. He may not have even been a Flyer before his no trade clause of his contract kicked in. You know, there were so many different storylines with Sanheim, and he just got big bucks.
Yeah,
big bucks. Again, good for him, great for his agent. Really stressful for everybody else if he doesn't live up to the expectations that, you know, that's a contract that he received with an entirely different front office. Yeah. So does the current front office see him as that same player? Do I think that he has the potential? Yes, I do. It's there. It's somewhere. I feel like there's just a weird mental confidence block in him. And there's a lot of contributing factors that could, you know, attest to this whole situation. I mean, last season was not ideal for many people. The franchise itself, the team, the players, you know, that, again, the human aspect of it, he could very well have been severely affected by that all, you know. I just, for somebody making as much as he is, I need him to prove that he is a top pair caliber defenseman, because you don't want to pay somebody $8 million to be on the second line.
Yeah.
So that's really where I'm at with that. And there were so many like sparks in the beginning of his career that made you go, man, like this kid's going to be good. And he still can be. I just think he needs to have the opportunity to flourish, kind of be trusted more with his game, see where another season under Tortorella kind of takes him. And with the first year of the rebuild, just, you know, you really can tell, is he going to, I mean, we don't really have a choice. We got a no trade clause.
Yeah.
So he is a big picture player for this rebuild. So he's got to earn it, and he's got to prove it. And while he has the most to prove this season, I also think he is the player that has the most to lose as well. You know,
it's a good one.
Like it's very deep. I know.
Yeah.
It's Travis Sanheim. Just prove me wrong. That's my favorite thing. I never like speaking negatively about players because I want everybody to succeed. I would love to be on this podcast at the end of next season and be like, man, Travis Sanheim, that dude really stepped up.
Yeah.
That's my goal. That's what I want. I'm going to stop talking now.
No, you're good. You're good. No, I think Travis Sanheim would probably agree with us that he has a lot to prove this year. It's not like we're being mean or kind of, you know, picking on him or anything. It's just clear cut that he has a lot to prove this season. I think it says a lot that both of us picked him a number 1 on a team, like you said, in a rebuild where like everyone has things to prove. So this one is really tough to kind of whittle it down to 3 guys. For Sanheim to be atop our list, I think says a lot. And for so many reasons, is a guy that has a lot to prove. 8-year, $50 million contract kicks in this season. and he's coming off a down year where I think a lot of people were expecting much, much more, even himself. And Brooke, for me, if there's a player's game that hinges on confidence the most, it's him.
Yeah.
When he's confident and he's going, like, he takes off, and he keeps taking off. And then when he's struggling and he's fighting confidence, it snowballs, and it's tough for him to stop it from snowballing. And I feel like we've seen that in past seasons where he's had down years and he just never really gets it back on track, or he's had years where he's winning most improved player and best defenseman on the team, like 2 years ago. So I think it's a guy that just has really fought it mentally here. And I think he just needs a reset. I think resetting and restarting this offseason can help.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Flyer now. He was not moved in the offseason. He was not traded. Yes, his name was floated out there. That is the reality of a team that's rebuilding. That's life in hockey. Your name is going to be talked about. There's going to be conjecture. You need to deal with it. I think a reset can be good for him. And I'm with you, Brooke. I'm just not ready to give up on him. I think there's still a ton there. Former first-round pick. He's 27. And yeah, he is locked up here. So we'll see what happens with Travis Sanheim. But he's definitely in that gray area because of his age and his contract, and it's a rebuild. Yeah. So it's like he's a tweener. It's like, does he not fit the timeline, or is he like a young player? He's like right in between. I think it's a guy that people need to figure out about. I think the organization wants to figure out who he is. Fans want to see who he is, and I think he needs to prove to himself what kind of player he is, in the NHL. And the reason I have him before Couturier and Atkinson, Brooke, is Couturier and Atkinson have established themselves as NHLers. Mm-hmm. They haven't played for a while because of injuries. That's why they need to prove themselves. I don't think Sanheim's really established who he is yet.
Right.
So that's the biggest. Crisis. Yeah, that's the reason I think he kind of jumps those two in my eyes for most to prove is, very much needs to identify who he is.
And I think one of the other biggest things that I hear is, he just got paid the big bucks. He's got the contract. He's got everything he wants. He's not going to live up to it. Like he got the money. Now it's whatever you get is what you get. He's not that kind of person. He does not have that kind of mentality, nor does a lot of athletes across Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Like you make the money you earned, and then you're going to keep living up and trying to surpass that expectation. And I think, if we were speaking to Travis Sanheim right now, he would honestly and openly say, I'm not living up to what I expect for myself. And that's why there is, a mutual respect in that regard, where everybody kind of knows the status that he should be at, including himself. And he's going to work hard to prove that he deserved that contract. He deserves this span in Philly. And hopefully he does really figure things out along this season. And like you said, can kind of establish who he is as an NHLer.
Yeah. And I remember John Tortorella at one point last year said that they thought they see a lot in him. Like they're like, hey, we're going to keep working on this guy. Like we just see the potential. We see the upside. Him and Bradshaw, the associate head coach that works with the D-men, you could tell they really saw kind of untapped potential. So they're eager to work with him, and perhaps getting a couple of veterans around him and maybe taking a little bit of pressure off his shoulders, and a reset, most importantly, can help him. But an important guy, an important player with a ton to prove. And I think he probably knows it going into this season.
To keep things going, we believe in you, Travis.
Yeah.
We want you to succeed.
Yeah. No,
I'm keeping the trend with the podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
I want everybody to succeed. I want a good hockey team.
Yeah. Following a good hockey team, not bad.
It's just an idea.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I think folks that have followed Sanheim, people like us that have watched him for a long time, going back to his days as a prospect, know the potential that's there. And we'll see if he can reach it, if he can start to look more like the player that a lot of people envisioned.
Anything's possible.
Yes.
Set your mind to it.
There you go.
Live the dream. Believe you can, then you're halfway there. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Motivational speaking here.
Stop me when you want
from Brooke Destra. You're going to get Flyers analysis and motivational messages from Brooke Destra.
Crazy.
On the Flyers Talk podcast.
Surprise. Okay, I'm done.
No, all good. Brooke Destra, thank you so much. As always, great seeing you, great chatting with you. A ton to talk about with the Flyers as this training camp and the season, preseason, all that fun stuff gets closer and closer. we'll have more. As we said, we'll look at next podcast. We'll look at 3 Flyers with the most to lose potentially next season. But it was fun looking at guys with the most to prove. Brooke, thank you so much. As always, a big thank you to Ben Berry, our podcast producer and guru. And Flyers fans, of course, as always, thank you so much for listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, please rate and listen. And we can't wait to talk to you next time.